What's up? It's your boy K, and I'm here with Isaac. Say what up to the people, Isaac.
What up to the people?
We are here with episode 2 of the K and Isaac podcast, Sports and Goal. So we are going to get started, obviously, as always, with our beer cheers. Go ahead and explain what we're doing here.
Quay Fun, man. This is the brewing company. So Hard Truth down in Brown County. So this is a local beer. You also might know Big Woods, the restaurants that are kind of around. We got one here in Speedway. And this is their beer. So I think I've actually had this at the restaurant maybe. But it's called Busted Knuckle. So there you go. That's our beer for the show. Yes. Tastes like beer. Almost have a little bit of a like coffee taste to it.
Yeah, it's a little darker. Thick to it. It's not bad. You know, if I were to give it a rating, probably a 6 out of 10.
It's a balance of roasted flavor and medium mouthfeel. Make it a great beer for an occasion. I guess. Oh, any occasion.
Any
Not
occasion.
Just an occasion. Any occasion.
We got to be all inclusive. All right, so we're going to get started with talking about our game picks from last week.
Lots of great games from last week. Should we announce the records?
Yeah, we should start with the record.
Okay, I went a decent 5-4.
It's over 500. Yeah,
It is very good.
I went 6-3.
All right, you're one better.
A little bit better, just a little bit.
So we started with college football. We had number 23 South Carolina versus number 24 Missouri. I watched the entire game. And South Carolina made a huge push at the very end. So they ended up getting the win. I had Missouri. Kay had South Carolina, so he wins that one. Next game, Tennessee, number 6 versus Georgia. I honestly thought Tennessee would play a lot better game. They really didn't. I mean, they're offensively couldn't get things going. I watched that game too. I had Tennessee winning the game, and you had Georgia.
Yeah,
you won
31-17, baby.
Yep. And then the last one, we both picked Pittsburgh. So number 17, Clemson versus Pittsburgh. Great game all the way through, and but Clemson ended up pulling it off 24-20. So we both lost that one.
Yeah. So going into NBA, right? Pacers and the Heat had their first in-season tournament game. And both Isaac and I had faith in our Pacers.
We shouldn't have.
Our faith was misplaced.
Yes.
The Heat won 124-111, so we both lost that one.
Which is odd, because then they played them like 2 nights later and they beat them. So,
yep.
Who knows?
That's how it goes. The Chicago Bulls took on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Cup game. The Cavs beat them 144-126. We both had the Cavs winning that one.
They stay undefeated at that time, yeah.
Yep. And then finally, the Los Angeles Lakers took on the San Antonio Spurs in their Cup game. And the Lakers beat them 120-115. We both, of course, got that one as well.
We both reluctantly chose the Lakers, but we knew they'd probably
You
win.
reluctantly. I think you hate the Lakers a little bit more than I do.
I hate them with every fiber of my being. NFL, Thursday night football. We had the Commanders and Eagles. We knew it was going to be a good game. Eagles pulled it off 26-18. We're actually going to talk about that game later. I had the Eagles, and you had the Commanders. You went with the young guys.
I had faith. I thought Jaden Daniels was it.
Yeah. They didn't... Well, we'll talk about it later. But they didn't play like they should have, I don't think. So, Second game, Ravens and Steelers. It was exactly how you predicted. A very sloppy game.
Mm-hmm.
But Steelers ended up pulling it off, 18-16.
Which, reminder, I said it would be 19-16, so...
You did. You were very close. Yep, and we both had the Steelers in that game, so we both won that one. And then Monday night football, Texans-Cowboys, we pretty much knew what was going to happen. Texans killed them, 34-10. We both had Texans, so we both got that one. We will have our picks towards the end of this podcast, so stick around for that.
All right, let's get into some football, all right?
Yes.
Pro football.
Okay? NFL.
So I'll let you talk a little bit more about the Eagles-Commanders. I know you watched that game, right?
I did. Yeah, so Eagles, like we said, ended up winning 26-18. Saquon Barkley with 2 touchdowns, both touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So really, it was pretty close going into the fourth. And the Eagles just took off. They ended up scoring 20 points in the fourth itself. So overall, I think my comparison, you can look at the yards actually. Eagles had 434 yards in total. Commanders had 264.
Now, tell me something. Is that a testament to how good the Eagles' defense was, or how bad the Commanders' offense was looking?
I think it's a little bit of both. So defensively, Eagles had a pretty solid game. They played them really well. I think they were getting pressure on the quarterback, which always, and he's young, so he's going to make decisions. But they clearly didn't play the same offense as well as they usually do. So I think it was a little bit of both. But if I had to give it an edge, I think it would be the Eagles' defense for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard when you're giving up 20 points in the fourth quarter to be able to, win for the first three quarters, and look like it's going to be a rough, rugged game. I mean, I wasn't watching. I didn't watch that game. I was watching the Steelers game. So I feel like if the Eagles scored 434 points and 20 points were scored in the fourth quarter, that means their offense all of a sudden gained traction in that fourth quarter and started hammering it to them.
Yeah. So that was actually the Thursday night game, so you have no excuse for not watching that game.
I was saving my stamina for the Steelers game, okay? That's an all-day, all-week type of vibe right there, baby.
Okay. You're probably watching basketball or something.
Which, let's go ahead and get into the Steelers game next, okay? Steelers 8-2 beat the Ravens, making them 7-4. As I said before, 18-16. Now, the one thing that stood out to me in this game, right, was George Pickens and how in the beginning of the game he wasn't very effective, okay? The Ravens have two very good cornerbacks. They just picked up Tre'Davious White, and then they also still have Marlon Humphrey, who was involved in some scraps earlier in that game. There was a ton of scraps, and it's always a Ravens-Steelers game.
They hate each other.
But it started off very early, and it sustained itself. I love that, being a fan.
Yeah.
But they have two great corners, and George Pickens wasn't really able to get open. That's why Russell Wilson was kind of struggling. So what did the Steelers staff do? They moved George Pickens to the slot position, making him have matchups against linebackers or against linebacker zones. And he ended up turning that performance into 8 catches with 89 yards total. So he really stepped up after that.
Let me ask you this question. Obviously, we know the Steelers are coached very well. They have a great coaching staff, a better offensive coordinator this year than they obviously did last year. Do you think other teams are going to make that adjustment when you've got a star wide receiver and say, hey, we're going to pull you out and we're going to put you in the slot? I mean, I think that's a humble move for the receiver to change almost into a spot that you're not usually in.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm giving the Steelers their props for identifying that and putting them in the position to win. But I also want to just acknowledge how, not every, especially George Pickens, who's like, I think 6'3", 6'4" maybe. Yeah. Not every wide receiver can make that adjustment from going to an outside, deep launch it, just catch over people type of receiver to someone who has to make quick cuts in small spaces, basically.
That's true.
So I want to give him his props in being able to make that adjustment and make those plays from the slot position. Another key performance that I want to talk about is Boswell. The Boz. He's the new Boz. I know there was a Boz somewhere in the 90s or something like that.
Steelers kicker, for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about.
Chris Boswell went 6 for 6. We won this game scoring no touchdowns.
Yeah.
No touchdowns.
Went off of his foot.
And on the contrary, I don't want to beat him down too much because he's like the GOAT of kickers, basically. Used to be until this season hit. Yeah. Justin Tucker went 1 for 3 for field goals. That makes him 16 for 22 on the year. This is a guy that, like, even last year alone, let alone the 10 years he's been in the league, just doesn't miss.
Yeah.
And not only does he not miss, you can line him up there for a 60-yard. He's probably going to boot it through the upright still. Like, it was almost a guarantee. And he missed some very easy ones. I think one was actually both of them were in the 40 to 50-yard range.
Which is right in his range. He should have no problem with those. Look, I've never been a kicker, but I would imagine it's very easy to get in your own head when you are a kicker. So if you miss a couple or somebody tries to psych you out, I mean, he's a veteran, so you wouldn't think that happened to him, but we've seen kickers fall off the map pretty quickly. Like, I mean, I don't want to say like Vinatieri was probably the best ever in the history of the game, and you saw him towards the end of his career just he started missing stuff, and they end up making a change. Vanderjack was kind of the same way. So I don't know. I'm not going to say it's the end of the road for him, but it is concerning because when you miss that many field goals, you can take yourself out of a game.
Yeah. I mean, at what point do they just say, we're going to start going for it on fourth downs, you know?
Yeah.
Like, is that going to be the nail in the coffin that tells him he's not around?
Continues to kill his confidence as well if they start doing stuff like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the Steelers game for you.
Yeah.
And then finally the Bills. The Bills and the Chiefs. What a game that was.
Watch the entire game. And the Bills, we know they have a great offense. They started the game off really well on defense. They picked Mahomes off right away. I think it was in the first drive they picked him off. And gave the Chiefs their very first loss of the season. Yeah. So we talked about it actually on the last podcast that I felt like the Chiefs were just playing with fire and that eventually it was going to happen. And the right team's going to come along and it was going to take them down. And the Bills, they did it the right way. They played well.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta acknowledge Josh Allen and his performance, not only in that game. I mean, I guess you can say it the game-winning play because eventually Patrick Mahomes went on defense and he wasn't able to finish the game through another interception, which solidified it for him. But they were down, I believe, 10 at the time or 9 at the time.
Yep.
But Josh Allen's run on that fourth down play to take it all the way to the house.
Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing the memes, man. It was like Spider-Man 2 whenever he had held the train together and all the New York subway people were carrying him. I was like, be careful, he's a hero. Like, that's how people in Buffalo are looking at Josh Allen after that performance.
Yeah. And
so that brings me to the next point. Josh Allen is still only number 2 in the MVP race behind Lamar Jackson. What do you think? You're okay with that even after Lamar Jackson's last performance?
Well, all I'll say is Lamar Jackson probably I would say he had one rough game, and that was against the Steelers. Every other game, he's been pretty solid.
He has,
and listen, to me, this is my personal opinion, and you can take it for whatever it's worth, and go ahead and shoot me down if you don't agree. But I don't care about the MVP because they talk about it during the regular season. I think it should translate itself of what happens within the playoffs and getting yourself into the Super Bowl. Because, you can have a great season, but if you flop in the playoffs, why does that matter? I mean, that's my opinion. And, again, you can comment and disagree and cuss me out if you want to, but you see these performances, but then you can't see them get any farther. And it's like, well, it's like it doesn't even matter.
I kind of agree with you, and that brings me to another point, which we'll talk about here we won't talk about it, but it reminds me of Joel Embiid in the NBA and how he, in his MVP season, I think
shouldn't even been the MVP.
I think they got swept. I want to say if they didn't get swept, they got beat horribly in like the first round of the playoffs, and everyone was like, "How did this dude get the MVP?"
Yep.
So I agree with that. Last thing I want to say about this Chiefs game. Patrick Mahomes throwing those 2 interceptions gives him 11 interceptions on the year. That is tied for most, right next to Geno Smith and Jordan Love.
Yeah. It's not a panic push of the button right now, but you do have to ask yourself the questions of why he's throwing so many interceptions. He's not known for that. And the fact that he is leading the league in interceptions right now is that's unnormal for him, unnatural.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting question we need to explore at some point.
Yeah, it almost makes me feel like he's like to the point where he just thinks he's invincible. And so some of these plays, now I'm sure if you go back and watch the tape, I'm sure some interceptions there, some interceptions here aren't really his fault. That's how it works with quarterbacks. Yeah. But is he just like a little bit more trigger happy? Is he willing to try to fit it into tight spaces because he's so used to being able to in the past?
Could be. I think one thing too is people know with any quarterback, if you can get solid pressure on them, he's going to make some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched every Chiefs game, but I've watched enough to know that they're blitzing him a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
He's still running out, but even on the run, it's getting tougher and tougher of a pass. And people are thinking, I think they're learning how to play him just a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we're going to get into our first segment, all right?
Show him the money.
Show him the door. We switched it this time
We did.
around, okay? We
Yeah,
want to
I
be
kinda
able to, keep the vibe straight. We don't want him getting angry every week. His face will get all red.
It's very easy for me. I have an anger problem. Show him the money. Surprisingly, I've dogged on him probably for the entire year. But I'm going to give it to Anthony Richardson.
Oh, Colts quarterback.
Yeah, so he came out from I'm calling it a 2-game suspension.
Suspended.
I think he's suspended because he tapped his helmet and wussed out when he was on the field and said, "Oh, I'm tired." That's what I would have done.
I'd say he's grounded. He was
Sit
grounded.
him on the bench. And then Flacco obviously struggled in the last 2 games, but he came out and he threw really well. I would say he was more on target than I think he ever has been out of any games I've seen him play. He was more on target. He's still firing the ball like it's a missile out of a gun. So, I mean, it's still hard to catch. There was a couple of times that the wide receivers didn't grab what they probably should have. But he went 20 for 30, 272 yards passing, 32 yards rushing, and then had 2 huge rushing touchdowns. The last one being the one that gave him the lead. And then you just hope that Aaron Rodgers would screw it up somehow, and he did. So
yeah, there you go.
There you go. But yeah, I give it to him. He, after having hopefully a good learning, humbling experience, he came back out and had a really good game, and hopefully he can carry that out through the rest of the season.
Yeah, hopefully. It's funny you mention Aaron Rodgers because show him the door
Get him out.
goes to the New York Jets, the entire Jets organization.
Man.
Now, let's just go ahead and string together some major events here, right? You fire your head coach, Robert Saleh, okay?
During the season.
During the season. Robert Saleh went 20-36 over the last 3.5 years. Okay, so he wasn't doing great. I mean, he was given a bad team to begin with.
Yes, he was.
All in the midst of this season also, which I'm not sure the timeline here, but around that time, I think it might have been like right before they fired Robert, they signed the new wide receiver, Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
They signed him in thinking that this is going to be the new connection, him and Rodgers. They're going to, just like the old Packer days, bud, let's get here and run it back. That hasn't really worked out too well.
Mm-mm.
They fire their GM, Joe Douglas, just here recently. Joe Douglas has spent...
Tell him that record. Go ahead and tell him.
6.5 years with the Jets, 30-64.
How do these people have a job?
I don't know.
64 losses, 30 wins.
Imagine if there was a starting quarterback, and even with Robert Saleh's record, over 3.5 years, you go 20-36.
Yeah.
But then you go 30-64 over 6.5 years. It's kind of crazy. And then finally, the major talking point reaching all over the place nowadays is how the owner is even talking about benching Aaron Rodgers. Not he's hurt.
No.
Not we're going to bring in somebody until he gets better or we're going to preserve him. Flat out saying, I don't think we want this dude start. The great Aaron Rodgers starting at quarterback here. And then they're also talking about possibly cutting him for next season. I mean, what are the Jets doing?
I don't know.
It's like they sold out. They brought in all the good people, all the parts that they needed to make this thing going. The off-season vibes were immaculate. I mean, they were just ecstatic. Everybody was happy. And now it's like they're just bottom of the barrel. They're just like, time to sell off everybody. Got to restart again.
Yep. Well, if you remember last year, before the season even started, last year, they talked about the Jets potentially being a Super Bowl contender. Rodgers goes down in the first night, in the first drive. He gets hit, tears his Achilles, and he's out. I think it was Achilles, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was.
Yep.
So he's out for the rest of the season. Automatically puts you on a bad run for that season. You can't expect a backup to come in and just dominate and try. I mean, they still made somewhat of a season out of it, but you had a lot of hopes going into this year that he was going to come in and be the leader that he should. I mean, I haven't seen it. I'm not saying he's playing terrible football, but he's not what he used to be.
I mean, they're losing to the Colts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like we talked about, Richardson had a good game. And Yeah, I don't know.
Those poor Jets,
It's tough.
man. New York is just drama, drama, drama.
Always.
It's always drama.
Yep. That's why
All
I
right.
like that city.
That's our segment for Show 'em the Money, Show 'em the Door. Let's get into this NBA.
Yeah.
All right.
NBA.
So, top headlining thing that I want to talk about is finally the Cavs lose the streak. Okay?
They do.
They lost last night to the Boston Celtics, which if there was a team that was going to beat them,
Be that one.
it would have been the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
Boston Celtics are now 12-3. Cavs are 15-1. They beat them 120-17 or 117. So it was a real tight game. I mean, I watched the entire
Me
game.
too.
Donovan Mitchell, I want to start off with. He had a great performance. He was really dragging his team in that fourth quarter, trying to keep it close, but there wasn't too much they could do. Another notable mention was Mobley. Mobley was playing very well.
Yeah, he did really well.
But the main performance I want to talk about was Darius Garland. Darius Garland went 3 for 21, 0 for 6 from the three-point line, scored 8 points. And that's compared to his last game against the Bulls, which I know the Bulls are a different team. And there's an argument to be made that the Boston Celtics have the best defensive guards with Drew Holiday and Derek White in the league. So I can understand, but Donovan Mitchell is also a guard, and he ended up scoring like 33 points. So, I mean, he didn't have an excuse to be shown. But Darius Garland in his last game went 9 for 18, 4 for 7 from the three-point line. So significantly better shooting. Now, what would you say? Is this Darius Garland playing bad, not doing good, or is it just the Boston Celtics defense is on him?
It's defense. It's
Yeah.
gotta be. I mean, watching the game, you watch the first it was about 2.5 quarters where the Celtics were completely dominating. They were hitting everything, which they have games where it just seems like they can't miss.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, they were playing solid defense. I think, too, it's Celtics seeing they're down, so then they just start firing, the Cavs seeing they're down, and they just start firing things up to hopefully try to get themselves back in the game.
Yeah.
They did get back in the game, and they ended up tying the game, and I think they even took the lead for a little bit. But they were down by 20-something at one point.
Yeah, yep.
So you got to give them a little bit of credit. But I will tell you, the stat that always sticks out to me is the Celtics shoot a ton of threes, and right now they're shooting almost 40% for the season. Almost 40% of their threes is what they're making, and that's hard to combat.
Can't do much about that.
Defend that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Cavs are a very heavy interior defensive team with both Jared Allen at center, and then Evan Mobley. Both of them are like 6'10", 6'11", shot blockers. Like, they're shutting down the paint. So if you can shoot three-pointers, that's the way to beat them for sure.
Yeah.
And then also the last notable performance I do want to mention with the Celtics. I know we kind of talked about in our last video, like, who's the leader of that team. I think Jason Tatum heard me and told me to shut up because he went 33, 12, and 7 to beat him. So
Great game. He played really well from the very beginning.
And I believe Brown only had like 17 points, which I mean, I say only 17 is good, but it's not like to that caliber. So yeah, good job to the Celtics. I mean, you're losing the teams you shouldn't lose to, but you're beating the teams that show that you are still top dog. So
yep, and still a lot of season to go. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Speaking of a lot of season to go, it's a little too early to call, but I do want to discuss some of the rookies that we are seeing.
Yeah.
Because there's some solid players right now that are doing really well. Probably my favorite, and I've watched him. I actually follow him on Instagram. I've kind of seen like his come up from Duke, is Jared McCain for the 76ers.
Yeah.
He's done... I mean, they're playing him, for one thing. So they're giving him minutes. That's giving him time to shoot, giving him time to build his game. But just to give you, the last 5 games in a row, he scored over 20 points. You don't hear about that with a rookie.
Yeah, not with a rookie.
Not when he's starting off like that. So he's averaging 15.2 points a game. And I tell you, he's a fun guy to watch. And I would keep my eye on him because I think he's going to have a really good season if he can stay healthy.
I think as long as the 76ers don't bring them down, because
they're terrible.
There's a lot of drama going on there, too. Have you heard the Tyrese Maxey called a team meeting? And they basically called out Joel Embiid for being late to everything.
Yeah.
Not just like, hey, you showed up late to this team. We don't know if you're going to be playing or you were late to. He said you're late to everything. Tyrese Maxey is calling out the veteran, the MVP, the all-star of that team. I mean, what are we doing, Celtics? And hopefully a player like Jared McCain, doesn't succumb to that type of leadership in that locker room. Hopefully he goes more under the wing of Tyrese Maxey, it appears.
Yeah. Embiid's becoming my new LeBron James. I'm starting to hate him a lot. And I don't even like watching him play basketball. To me, it's just he's good because he's big.
Yeah. I mean, he's got talent. He can shoot.
I don't like him.
He can shoot for a big man. His defense is... Listen, I give him his props. He is a great player.
I'm taking my props back.
Off the court, though, and as far as, like, it almost reminds me a little bit of Kawhi Leonard-esque of, oh, my elbow hurts, I ain't playing.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro. You're getting paid millions and millions, like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Is it still a thing for him to where he's not playing back-to-back games?
He got suspended over it, and so, they gave him heat.
Charles were talking about it, and I agree 100%. You're getting paid unbelievable amount of money, and you're going to tell your team, if we have 2 nights in a row, I'm not going to play the second night. Just go get off that. Go retire. That's insane to me that you would tell it. Not if you're... Well, I'm not even going to say that. It's just... That drives me up the wall, and you have the privilege of playing a sport for a living and making it a serious... It's not even about the money. You get to play a sport, and you have fans that are paying to come watch you. To come watch you play a game.
Yeah.
Every NBA player should be playing 82 games. That's my opinion. That's the way it used to be.
People get hurt, but...
Besides the people that get hurt. If you're just taking a night off...
Yeah, load management.
You shouldn't get paid for that night, for one thing. You should lose all your money. You should lose... You can't even make it to the All-Star game. You're out. I'm so sick of it.
Well, they did put restrictions on awards. Like, you have to play, like, at least 60-some games in order to get an award, so...
drives me nuts.
The last thing I'll say about the Sixers, man, is that their record right now is a reflection of their leadership, in my opinion. If these are the issues that we're hearing that they're having with Joel Embiid not showing up, that's why they're 2-11 right now. That's why they're bottom of the barrel in the East.
Yep.
So, the next person to talk about with the rookie race is that boy Dalton Knecht.
Yeah.
He just had a monster night the other night. I think he shot 8 3-pointers, and 6 of them came in the third quarter.
Okay.
He's a beast.
For the Lakers.
Yes, for the Lakers.
Yep.
He is lights out. It says he's averaging 11.3 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, and 1.1 assists. But really, this is the type of player, he gives me flashes like Klay Thompson, where it's just like if he gets that vibe, he gets that feeling, he gets a couple of looks where they go through a little bit, he can just catch fire like that. And I think that give him 2, 3, maybe 4 more years, he's going to be to the caliber of shooter in the league, where he's going to be just like your Kyle Korvers, just like your JJ Redicks, just like your Klay Thompsons. Like, he's going to be a player you have to game plan around to make sure they don't get any open looks. Switch everything just to make sure he's not touching the ball at the 3-point line.
Yep. And again, when you allow your players to play the game, you're only going to make them better. And it seems like that's what the Lakers are doing. Obviously, you got to prove yourself when you're out on the court, which he's done a lot better than Bronny James, I can tell you that much. But the fact that he's out there and he's contributing, LeBron even, made a good comment about him, saying that he's, appreciate his effort and going into that and working hard. I think it means a lot. So it really does.
Yeah.
And our last guy is... I enjoyed watching him in college a lot.
Yeah.
And he lost in the championship, but Zach Edey.
Yeah.
With the Grizzlies. He's actually been playing really well. I haven't actually seen him play. Have you seen it?
I haven't watched the Grizzlies game,
okay.
no.
I'll have to do that. But his numbers are looking pretty good. So 11.3 points a game, 2.5 rebounds per game, I'm sorry, I'm reading that wrong. 11.1 points a game, 6.9 rebounds per game. That's better. Yeah. And then one block per game. That's pretty good numbers.
I remember when Zach Edey was at Purdue and they were getting a deep run into the tournament. Right? I watched all the Purdue games, and I remember these announcers just saying, well, he's great at this level, but all he's doing is posting up in the paint, and they're just throwing it to him, and he's taking advantage of his size. This isn't going to translate to the NBA. He's going to be too slow to make it up and down the court against some of these more athletic bigs. He's going to be, not strong enough to use his size against these bigs. I think he's putting all of those comments to rest already, his rookie year.
Yeah.
Now, just let this guy develop. I mean, everyone knows when he gets to the NBA level, the bigs develop at a much slower rate than the guards.
Yeah.
And so once you give him 3-4 years to get his body right, to get his conditioning on par, to get a little bit more athletic, I mean, he could be a force.
Yeah.
He could be something special. And freaking 7'5", I mean, I honestly think that after, I know you don't like him, Embiid, after he's gone, after Nikola Jokic, who's like 29, 30 years old, gone, after Anthony Davis, who's like 31 years old, like that's kind of the old guard of bigs. This next phase coming in, I think it's going to be led by Zach Edey and then Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
He's a dog, and we do need to watch a Grizzlies game.
Yeah.
I need to check him out.
But fair enough point of what you said, that everybody always has the question on some of these. Well, you never really know how people are going to translate into the NBA. It's a different game. I mean, it's a different speed, different strength, different power. And you hope that when they bring these kind of players in, that they can make that jump. And like Kay said, I think that's what's happening. So, be fun. He's got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's always the big part about big players. I mean, they get battled down underneath. Can he stay healthy? That's always the question.
Absolutely.
Last point. It's more of a question than anything else. So I read a little bit about this. Is the NBA is considering a new all-star format.
Mm-hmm.
And let me be the first to say they need to figure something out.
Yeah.
Because it is horrible. I mean horrible. Everything about it except maybe the dunk contest and maybe the three-point shootout. Everything else is so terrible. And we actually hosted it here in Indianapolis, and I didn't even want to watch it. But I watched it. But when you get to the actual game itself, it's like, I think they shot 83s. That's alley-oops. Nobody's trying. It's not a real game. Nobody's giving effort. It's not fun to watch. So here's what they're potentially proposing. This is not a guarantee. This is what they're talking about. So you'll have 3 teams of 8 all-stars each. So 8 people on 3 different teams. And then the winner of the Rising Stars game. Those 4 teams will play each other. Okay, so you might have like 1 versus 3, 2 versus 4. They play, and then the winner of those 2 play for the All-Star Championship. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, the first question I would have is, how are they organizing these teams? I mean, if it's a draft basis where you have, 3 team captains and then a rising star captain, and they get to pick out of the league, I mean, or whoever's getting the votes, really. If they get to draft it that way, I still think it's going to be a vibe where it feels like you're just playing with your friends, and it's not going to be anything serious. And even if they don't do it that way, even if it is drafted, like the one thing that I always go back to when it comes to the All-Star game is, like, when was the last time the All-Star game was fun to watch? And to
90s.
me, it was when it was the East versus the West battling it out, when they still had their team jerseys on and they were there representing their city, but not only their city, representing the East or the West of the NBA.
Right.
And it almost felt like this is more of a rivalry. Yeah. Like, there was a little bit of oomph to it with them changing things to being able to have team captains and picking their friends to their side. And, I mean, like you said, it's all three-pointers and alley-oops and, like, players laying on the floor so they don't get dunked on. Like, what are we doing? It's not entertaining to watch. Mm-hmm. People don't appeal to the flashy dunks that you could do. Like, if I had an 8-foot court, I could probably do that. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe you could. I don't know.
But no, people want to watch competition.
Yeah.
That's what they enjoy watching. People competing, battling against each other. And what the All-Star game is supposed to represent is the best of the best going at it.
Yep.
So, I mean, how do you fix this? I know you talked about with the MLB, they do like home court advantage in the finals.
Yeah.
Like,
so based off, so I mean, I'm not saying it's the best idea, but baseball was having the same issue to where there was no competitiveness within the All-Star game. And so what they did is whoever wins the All-Star game has home field advantage for the World Series. Now, I'm not saying basketball should do that, but that might create a little bit more competitiveness. But it just takes me back when you watch like the Olympics, for example. You see the USA team competing against all the other nations, and you just watch them step it up to a completely different level.
Yeah.
I mean, and the games were super competitive. There was no guarantee that the USA was going to win. I mean, you had Steph Curry having to hit three-pointers at the end of the game that were ridiculous shots in order to win that gold medal. I mean, maybe you do something like that where you put all the best USA, United States players on one side, and then all the guys that are in the NBA that are from a different country that have been, selected the All-Star game. Maybe you play against each other that way.
I wonder what it would look like, though. Like, how many...
It may not be balanced.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I would say there's probably a lot more international players at the top nowadays than there are American players.
That's a topic for maybe next time we need to discuss. Do a little comparison, because that would be something to look at. That would be interesting.
For sure. Yep, so interesting format for how this All-Star game, how they're trying to get it to play out. Yep. Like I said, if they're trying to encourage viewership and encourage people to actually, enjoy watching the game... Yeah. I don't think this is it. I don't think this tournament style is going to be the answer.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, leave us a comment on maybe some of your ideas of what you think should happen in the All-Star game. Yeah. We'd love to talk about them because we all agree something needs to be different. We just maybe don't have the best solution to what that is yet.
Yeah. Okay. Getting into our high school spotlight this week. Okay. As we mentioned before, we were talking about high school football. This week, we have Crown Point going up against Westfield. Now, Crown Point has 0 state championships. Westfield has 1 state championship, and this is the game to go to the state championship.
Yes, correct.
So, big goals in mind for both of those schools, and they have a hefty test in front of them.
Yep. And then Brownsburg versus Center Grove is the next game. That's going to be a really, I don't know. No, I won't go to the game. That would have been a really fun one to probably go watch because I bet it could be an excellent game. Brownsburg's got 2 state championships and Center Grove has 5. They actually won 3 in a row, so 20, 21, and 22. They've always had a solid program. They're a lot like, I think, Ben Davis and Warren Central. It's where they just have had a great program and they continue to have good teams. So, again, those 4 teams battling it out, and I think next... It'll be Thanksgiving weekend. They'll have the state championship down at the Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah.
But we'll update you on the scores and see who wins next week.
I'm rooting for Brownsburg, man. Pull it out. I don't want to see Center Grove win another state championship. Okay. When I was at Ben Davis, I didn't like them then. I still don't like them now. So let's go, Brownsburg.
I'm gonna go Crown Point because they've never won one before.
According
to our research.
Root for the underdog.
Yep. And that's up by South Bend, I think, isn't it?
Yep, it's in the way. It's more towards the region.
Toward the region, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll let you know what happens next week.
All right. So into our last topic of this video cast, we are going to get into some fights that took place this past week. All right. So obviously, I think probably the most watched sporting or fight, I guess, this past weekend, which I don't know why it would have been. The Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight.
I know why it would have been. Go ahead.
Because Mike Tyson's almost 60 years old, and he looked like it.
Doesn't matter.
In that fight.
That's not what people wanted, though. I think people walked into that or to turn on their screen because they hoped that Mike Tyson would rock the crap out of Jake Paul and knock him out. That's what they were hoping they were going to see. That's what I honestly thought I was going to see. I was waiting to see him. Here's the thing. I'm just going to give my very brief and quick opinion on this thing. I think the whole thing was fixed.
Oh.
I really do.
Oh. Because, conspiracy.
Now, look. Tyson was built, yes, he's 58, but he was rock solid. His legs, for whatever reason, didn't look right. Like he was a little shaky through the whole fight. Looks like he had a hard time finding his balance. But there were plenty of times. I've seen a ton of Mike Tyson fights because I watched them on YouTube. I was kind of too young to watch that stuff. But I've seen a ton where he is a counter king.
Yeah.
And Jake Paul would come in wide open on several shots, and Mike Tyson would not counter. Would not counter. So, to me, there was something in that contract that said, hey, I need to last 8 rounds in order to get my money. Now, I don't fault him for that because he made $29 million, whatever it is, off that fight. But you said it when we were watching it. We all agree. Can you imagine spending $2,000-$3,000 a ticket to go watch that trash? Because that's what it was.
Oh, man.
It was complete. It was not. Now, the fights before it were great.
Fights before it were good.
There were several good boxing matches before that. But the main event was not fun to watch.
Now, I'm going to say I disagree. I don't think it was like rigged. I don't think it was fixed. I think...
What are you getting on it? How much money are they giving you? Say that.
I think Mike Tyson simply didn't want to put himself in danger. And I got to give Jake Paul more credit than what I think a lot of people are giving him. He himself is excellent in the fact of just luring you in, giving you jabs, and as soon as you lunges, he's going to hit you with a check hook or he's going to hit you with something around the bend. I think that Mike Tyson, early on, he caught some wind whiffs from them gloves, and he kind of really got hesitant. I mean, he's a 60-year-old man. You get knocked out at 60-year-old, you're probably going to have brain damage the rest of your life. Yeah. So I think he was playing it safe. He knew he was getting paid. I definitely don't think, what is he fighting for? This isn't a championship fight, you know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I think he was really just trying to make it through that fight, and he thought that he would already give the people what they wanted to see, which was just Mike Tyson lacing it up again, But really what people wanted to see was see him knock out Jake Paul. Yeah. But I think early on he realized that wasn't going to be a possibility.
It's like watching Michael Jordan join the NBA again, but he sits on the bench.
No, it's like watching him be in the game, but he never touches the ball.
He's on the bench. That's what it was. That's what it was like. Now, again, I love Mike Tyson, and I give it to Jake Paul. He can draw a crowd. He can make it entertaining. He knows how to talk
I think
trash.
Mike Tyson drew that crowd.
But I will tell you, I think Jake Paul, he even stepped back a little bit because he didn't want to be the one that would knock out Mike Tyson. I think that wouldn't be a good look.
I'd say that was probably like 40% of it, but I think same for Mike Tyson not wanting to put himself in danger. I think Jake Paul thought the same thing. He's getting paid at the end of the fight. Yeah. Mike Tyson, although his lower body looks like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz walking around that cage, or the Scarecrow. No, it's Tin Man. The Tin Man from Wizard. Yeah, he needed some oil in the knees. Yeah. But no, I think it's the same for Jake Paul. He didn't want to put himself in danger, and Mike Tyson could still swing it. I mean,
all he needs is one hit.
Yeah, and it could sting. I don't know if it'd put him out, but it would really hurt.
But we only land 18 punches.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
Jake Paul wanted it to be that way. He didn't want to get touched. He wanted to dance around, get the points, get the victory. At the end of the day, he can say he beat Mike Tyson, even though neither of them really took damage.
Yeah, John Chris said it on his podcast today. I think Netflix or Amazon or somebody's going to have to do all the Jake Paul fights moving forward because I don't think people are going to pay pay-per-view anymore to watch those fights. First off, Netflix, you suck. That was terrible. To say you're there going to host a fight and then nobody can watch the thing.
That was bad.
I mean, don't do that. And you're supposed to be hosting some, I know it's not going to pull the same amount of crowd, but it's going to pull a big crowd. You're supposed to be hosting NFL games on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Steelers game is going to be one of them.
And I hope we actually get to watch it because our screen kept buffering.
Yeah, it was bad.
It's like we're watching the 1980s Nintendo game. It was terrible. Sorry.
Okay, so that's it for the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight. The next fight I want to get into was the second headlining one, which was obviously the more entertaining fight. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic.
In the UFC.
In the UFC, yes. Mixed martial arts. Jon Jones is the baddest man alive on this planet. He is my generation, current generation, I guess, since he just fought again for the first time in forever. But he is the undisputed king of the heavyweights around the world in any fighting. I mean, boxing, I guess, is a little bit different because you can't kick and stuff like that. But even if you put Jon Jones in a boxing match, I'm sure he would be able to do some damage.
Maybe that's who Jake Paul needs to fight next.
Oh, God. He would murder Jake Paul. But no, in his lane, Jon Jones, undisputed, is the best. He picked Stipe Miocic apart. I mean, Stipe Stipe, mind you, was a fighter who held records at heavyweight, was the undisputed king of the heavyweights. In his last fight, he fought Francis Ngannou, who's now a tank in the PFL. I mean, he's been knocking people out there. He ended up fighting Tyson Fury and got robbed on the decision card.
Did. I agree.
But Stipe Miocic was an undisputed heavyweight king. He was the GOAT at the heavyweight division. And Jon Jones picking him apart the way he did, and then he took him out with a taekwondo kick to the rib cage, broke his ribs. I think I saw later on it slashed his spleen or something like that on the inside, lacerated his spleen. I mean, he really tore him up, and Stipe ended up retiring right after the fight. He's like, I'm done. That's it. This dude, I don't want no rematches. He got it.
Yep. I say give it to anybody that wants to step into the ring with Jon Jones. You give him a credit just to want to do it. Now, Stipe, obviously, as you said, he's a great fighter. He's had a great career. Yeah. He's done really well. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know of anybody that could step in and take him on and be... I mean, I don't know how many more years Jon Jones has left. Maybe he's, getting to the end of it a little bit. He has a couple fights
at most.
I saw the highlights because I was in bed. But it's a good fight. And... My favorite part of the whole night was the 47th president walking into just a madhouse in New York City with an entourage of like every person that's on his cabinet. You had Johnson, the Speaker of the House, RFK Jr. was there, Ramaswamy, my guy. I love Ramaswamy. If you're watching, love you. Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard was there. Kid Rock is not in his cabinet, but he should be. Why not?
Hey, did you see he's going to be the cabinet leader of alcohol or something like that? Did you see that on? No, and then Donald Trump Jr. tweeted out, he's like, "You're hired."
Yeah, that's not real, but that would be funny. But I mean, and Elon Musk was there.
Yeah,
you just had a long list of people, and then Jon Jones after the fight gives Trump his belt and does his little dance. Yeah, so that was probably my favorite part of that whole evening.
I mean, Jon Jones, going back to what he's capable of, you put 10 average dudes in a room with Jon Jones and he's the one walking out of it. I mean, there's no doubt. The last thing I want to talk about with our fight segment is who's next for Jon Jones. So I know you don't know UFC fighters as much, but there is an up-and-coming fighter named Tom Aspinall, who is someone that the UFC division's never seen. Before him, there was a dude named Cyril Gane, who's a French dude. This was a specialist when it comes to kickboxing. No one could out-kickbox him. He was picking people apart. His one weakness was his grappling ability. And Jon Jones' first fight in the heavyweight division was against Cyril Gane, and Jon Jones took him to the ground in the first round, choked him out. And so this Tom Aspinall character is the same type of character as Cyril Gane with the kickboxing ability, the fighting ability, standing up, but he also has a background in wrestling. He also has grappling ability. Okay. So a lot of what people are saying, and he's also bigger. I think he's the same height, 6'4", but he has to cut weight to get to heavyweight division. Got it. So he's a little bit bigger than Jon Jones. He's a natural heavyweight. A lot of people are saying this could be the biggest test of Jon Jones' career if he goes and faces this dude. Jon Jones doesn't preferably want to face this dude. Who he would rather face is Alex Pereira. Now, I don't want to see this matchup. I know that Alex Pereira is like 36 years old. He's already taken out kings left and right in the UFC. I mean, he's had an incredible reign since he's been here. And his knockout power and ability is uncomparable to anyone who's been in that light heavyweight division. And that's where he is right now, light heavyweight. So he's not as big as Jon Jones. And the other reason why I don't want to see him fight Jon Jones is simply because he is not a grappler at all. I mean, he can manage just enough, but against a high-level grappler like Jon Jones, I think he would just get tore up. So,
didn't Dana White already said he's not going to do that fight?
Yeah, in Dana White's post-fight press conference, he basically said he doesn't want to see that fight, but he said if both Alex Pereira and Jon Jones were, like, getting on his nerves about it, they're both grown men, and he would give them what they want.
But what weight would they have to go to?
Well, Jon Jones would have to cut down to... Well, the thing is, Alex Pereira walks around at about 230. So that's technically heavyweight, but that's not in shape heavyweight. That's not natural build heavyweight. John Jones walks around at the weight that he fights at, which is typically 230, 240. And so he doesn't have to cut weight when he's in the heavyweight division. I think if they were to fight, Alex Pereira would try to make it to where John Jones cuts down to 205 back to light heavyweight.
That's a lot of cutting.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but over the past 5 years, John Jones has, actually built his body up to a heavyweight. So it's not like just putting on fat.
Yeah.
It's literally building the muscle density to be up to the heavyweight.
Well, let's see. I mean, obviously, he's earned another fight.
Yeah.
And wants to battle again for that, to keep that belt. So somebody has to... They have to give somebody a chance to go fight him.
I mean, John Jones said that he would rather retire than take on Tom Aspinall before the fight. But then after he finished Stipe so convincingly, he was like, maybe I'll give the people what they want. And then in his post-press conference fight, he was kind of just talking about, if I were to fight Tom Aspinall, I would want to get, significantly paid for it. It basically sounded like he would be the highest paid UFC fighter ever in history. So we'll see about that. I really hope it's going to be Tom Aspinall. But I'm excited to see it. And whoever he fights is probably going to be his last fight. And so live it up. Enjoy the John Jones while you still have him.
Yeah.
So that's all we're going to talk about for the fights. Let's go ahead and get into our game picks.
All right. Game picks we go. We have some incredible games this week, especially in college football. First game we're going to look at, number 14 BYU versus 21 Arizona State. So BYU's 9-1, Arizona State is 8-2. I think it's going to be a good game. What do you think? Who are you picking?
I'm going to go with BYU, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in a hot streak all year. I think they're going to keep the streak strong. I think they're going to try to get back into that tournament.
I agree. I'm going to go BYU for that pick. I think I saw them play a little bit this weekend. They actually had a pretty good game. So that's who I'm going to go with. Now, we got two undefeated teams. They're going to be playing against two teams with one loss. So the first, 9-0 Army at number 6 Notre Dame. I don't know. What do you think?
I think Notre Dame's going to get him, man. Notre Dame's going to get him. You can't go into Notre Dame Stadium and boss them around like that, especially not this season. They look good.
Unless you're in Northern Illinois.
We ain't going to mention
that up. I think Notre Dame wins by 30.
By 30, convincingly.
Yeah, I don't think Army has a chance. I've watched Army. They are a good team. I'll give it to them. But Notre Dame has been clicking on every cylinder. I mean, every single one. And I've watched every game so far this season. They are really, really good. Now, I don't know. I wouldn't say they're necessarily 100% national championship winner. I don't know that. Because, I mean, Oregon's great. Ohio State's great. But Notre Dame is a really good team. And I don't think Army has a chance. I could be wrong, but I just don't think they do.
Guess we'll see.
Yep. And probably the game that game day is going to be there. This is the game everybody's talking about. This is a game we discussed a little bit last week. Is number 5 Indiana undefeated 10-0 for the first time in the history of their program versus the dreaded, disgusting Ohio State. 9-1. They're the number 2 team though right now, behind Oregon. So before we get into it, who do you got?
Do you believe? I believe. I believe that IU is going to go into Ohio State Stadium and they're going to edge out a close one. I think they're going to beat them by a touchdown.
Wow.
Yep. I got really IU. Bold. I got IU beating Ohio State. Let's go Hoosiers. Let's go.
Are you going to put money on it when we're betting this weekend?
No betting. No betting.
Okay, let me just say this. Ohio State, we know, has been a great team. They've been a great program for a very long time. That's a given. We don't really need to say a whole lot about them. Their last game that they played, which was 2 weeks ago, here's an interesting piece. They both had the bye. So they played a game. They both had a bye to be able to prepare for themselves, for each other, and also get some rest. I think both teams needed it. And then now they're playing each other. Not much to say about Ohio State, but that we know they're a solid program. And they have done they lost by 3 to Oregon and probably should have won that game, to be honest.
Yeah.
10-0 Indiana. We talked a little bit about them last week. They have not played a ranked team this entire season. This is going to be their first ranked game.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily say a whole lot, but I will tell you this. I watched that entire game between IU and Michigan. Entire game. Okay? They started off hot. They went up 17-0, and I'm like, all right, like this is it. Like this is the team. They're rolling. They're looking great, and they're just putting things to bed, and they're doing it quick. Second half, I can't necessarily say it's Michigan making huge adjustments. Probably it was, and then for whatever reason, their offense collapsed. I mean collapsed. I don't. I'll have to look it up, but I think they had 20, 30 yards in the third quarter.
That's not good.
So they ended up winning the game, yes, 20-15, and that's how they got that 10-0 record. But I'm going to tell you this. If they have a half like that against Ohio State, they're going to get destroyed. They're going to get destroyed because Ohio State's not going to put up with that. They're going to capitalize on those opportunities. So I would love to say Indiana. I'm going to root Indiana. I'm going to cheer for them. I'm going to watch the game. But I don't think I think Ohio State's going to pull the game off.
You got Ohio State.
Yep, I think they're going to win by probably 10.
Where's your Hoosier pride?
I know. Like I said, I'm cheering for them. Okay, I want Indiana to win more than any team.
You got to believe.
Wins. Yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't believe.
So we'll see.
All right. Getting into the NBA now. Thursday, we have the Magic going up against the Lakers at the Lakers. The Magic are 9-6. The Lakers are 10-4. Who do you got?
Magic been playing fairly well. I did watch them the other night, but I still think the Lakers, they got home court advantage, and they've actually been, gelling pretty well. We talked about Connect earlier, so I got to go with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think, the Magic have been doing very good. I think Banchero's still out, and, that's LeBron's matchup right there. If you're having a backup going up against LeBron, and he's been on a streak too. Triple-double after triple-double at his old age, so I'm thinking Lakers too. Next up, Friday, we got the Mavs, who are 8-7, going up against the Nuggets, who are 8-5 in the NBA Cup game.
Haven't seen too much of either one of them play, to be honest. I haven't watched too many of their games. But I'm going to go Mavs.
You going Mavs?
Yeah. Go for the underdog in this one.
Yeah, I think, Luka Doncic is great. Jokic is great. I think it'll really be about who shows up between those two. I definitely think the Mavs are starting to pull it together a little bit this year as far as their roster is concerned. Now, the record doesn't really show that. But I really think with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic together, and then obviously I have the Twin Towers. They have Lively and Gafford as the bigs. I think they're going to be able to do some damage, and not only do some damage, but limit Jokic a little bit. So
yeah, I think it's safe to say they should be playing better than what they are.
Yeah. So I got Mavs too.
Okay.
And then finally, Friday, we got the Pacers, who are 6-8. And we got the Bucks, who are 5-9.
Yeah.
In the in-season tournament game. The Bucks being 5-9 is a little surprising at this point.
It is.
Giannis, I think after he won that championship, it's just been downhill from there. I think the Pacers in past have typically had the Bucks number, and they dropped the first play-in game. I think this is a must-win game for them if they want to continue in this in-season tournament run. I'm rooting for them, even though they're at Bucks. They're in Milwaukee, which is a horrible place. Shouldn't be a part of the United States. I'm going with the Pacers.
Yep, I'm going Pacers as well. Not with confidence, though. But I know the Bucks have been struggling. They've not been playing good basketball. Pacers have been slightly better, I would say. But, yeah, I'm the same with you. They know they need to win this to stay effective in the tournament. So, Pacers it is. All right. NFL Sunday. 49ers Packers. Could be a pretty good game. 49ers have not been playing great football here recently. Not really sure what's going on there.
Christian McCaffrey was hurt for the majority of the season.
That's a huge problem. That's true. And it's a lot of money sitting on the bench. 49ers Packers, who you got?
I think, the Packers are 7-3. They've had a pretty solid year so far. Jordan Love, though, he was mentioned in that graphic earlier with Patrick Mahomes. He's thrown 11 interceptions on the year. And I think if there's any team where the defensive mistakes is really going to pile up on you, it's against the 49ers. Yeah. So I think I'm going to go to 49ers here. They're going to go into Packer Stadium, and they're going to beat them in a really close game.
Yeah, actually, I'm picking the same.
Can you stop
49ers.
Copying me?
I'm sorry. No, 49ers, I feel the same way. I think maybe they're trying to get their stride back together. I've seen Packers play a decent amount of football, and they have struggled.
Yeah.
They're winning games, but they have not been
it's
solid
real close
all the way
ones.
around. Yep.
Yeah, just like that last Bears game. Oh, boy.
Yeah, they should have technically lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, they should have.
And not to mention, I think Christian McCaffrey is, slowly getting back. He's starting to get some reps here and there, so.
Yep. So, 49ers it is. We got Cardinals 6-4 at the Seahawks 5-5. Who do you got?
Now, this is a big game for their division. The winner of this game, in my opinion, obviously the 49ers still involved up there too, but I really think the winner of this game right here is going to set the tone to win the division and eventually make it into the playoffs. And after seeing the Seahawks' last performance where Geno Smith runs it in himself to get the game-winning touchdown, I think that vibes are high with the Seahawks, and even though the Cardinals are catching the stride a little bit, they're starting to figure things out down there in Arizona. They are in the Seahawks Stadium, and I think in a close matchup like this, that'll make all the difference. So I'm going Seahawks.
Okay.
In a close game.
Yeah. I think Smith screws it up at the end, so I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I think he makes an error somewhere. He throws an interception, it's a fumble, he takes a sack he shouldn't have. So I'm going Cardinals, and that gets him to 7-4.
All right.
Last game, Monday Night Football. Should be a great game. Ravens, who are 7-4, just recently lost to who?
The Pittsburgh Steelers, of course.
And the Chargers, who are 7-3, having a great season, actually.
Yeah, they're doing really, man. John Harbaugh.
Yep.
Or is it John? Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
John's for
the weird brother.
The Ravens.
Yeah, yep. Jim's the weird one.
Jim Harbaugh. Who do you got, Ravens or Chargers?
I'm pretty sure the Ravens are upset about their most recent loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sure that they're ready to get it back on track. And I think that any other team besides the Steelers, when both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are putting their head down and that defense is chugging out stops, I don't think there's any way you can beat the Ravens. The Chargers are a great team. Justin Herbert's putting it together this year. He could have a good performance, but I just don't see it, really. I think the Ravens are going to pull this one out at Charger Stadium.
Yeah. So playing in L.A., I'm going Chargers. I think they're going to put the pressure on him. I think Jim's probably been preparing for this game, maybe potentially all season, because he's been watching Lamar. He knows his capabilities. He knows how to get after the quarterback. He did it when he was at Michigan. So knows how to get pressure on him, and I think that's what they're going to do. And they're going to have some contains, they're going to have some spies, and they're going to figure out how to hold him into some spots to where he can't get that ball. Or he panics and he throws, and they pick it off. So I'm hoping Chargers, just because I like them better as a team, but I think they're going to pull it off, get them to 8-3.
All right. Think the Chargers are going to get them, huh? All right. That's all we got for this video. If you liked this video, this podcast, please give us a like on the video. Please comment what you thought about it. Maybe there's something you agree with, didn't agree with, disagreed, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Same thing.
Go ahead and share this podcast with your friends, anyone who enjoys sports. If you're a sports fanatic like I am, like Isaac is, you love hearing about what other people are thinking that you're not thinking about. And then finally, please give us a sub on YouTube. Every sub goes a long way, and we now only need 44 more subs. We are getting close to reach our goal of 500. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.